and a little bit juicy. Oh, we have a narrative on thermometer that was sent last interaction when we were doing the analysis of on the social media. Wish we had a visual tool that could understand the public sentiment. So we came up with a ripe tomato wine. Pretty cool, right? Well, did you know that public has a different opinion and what the ripe will bring to the possibilities? I guess it makes a sense when you think about it. It's a fascinating concept, using something familiar as a life cycle of the tomato to try to represent something as complex as public sentiment. That's pretty clever. And it really goes beyond just like the basic color association, which is what I find it so intriguing about it. You really got me curious, trying to picture this. So, like, I'm imagining a wine, right? Instead of like temperature marking, we have tomatoes. And there are different states of, tomato nest. So how did these tomatoes actually reflect what people are feeling? Well, first picture the wine as like a thermometer, a body with different sections that shows like level of public sentiment. Each tomato then represents a slice of public opinion and its color. Well, it's conditioned to tell a story. Okay. The story of the green tomatoes are telling us green tomatoes are those that are still really firm and unripe. You would want to eat those, yet they represent the raw, unflavored opinion. It's that initial stage of anger, outrage, maybe even distrust. Like if a company launches a new product that has some ethical problem, that when you want to see a lot of green tomatoes popping up on the vine, this visual clue is a thing that is a bit sour. What happens when these green tomatoes starts to know it's gonna change? Does that mean the public is chilling out a bit? As the sentiment shifts, the tomato change color. 2. The ones that are starting to turn yellow may even have few bruises, those signifying a move towards neutral. Might still be there, like lingering, but the intense negativity is easing up. Like people are taking back steps, watching closely, but they are not fully convinced. Yet they are likely to wait and see if they're actually going to make a delicious tomato sauce. I promise. So things are progressing, but we are not at the peak of tomato ripeness yet. What's about the pale red tomato? The ones that haven't quite reached the vibrant red color yet, those are the ones where you are like, are you ready? These represent a more neutral sentiment like wait and see approach. The public knows about the situation, but they aren't really formed a strong opinion on the way or the other way. Think of it at a stage where people are gathering information, forming their own judgment, but they are just not ready to pick up the side yet. Like when you are in the grocery store looking for tomatoes, you don't know if you want to add those in your recipe. It's not quite ripe enough to be a star, but it has potential. Okay, we've got green, we've got yellow, we've got the pale red. Those juicy red tomatoes. Bring it on. What does that symbolizes? The red juicy tomato is all those we all want. The stars of the show. Bright red, healthy tomato represents positive sentiment. You know that growing trust, forgiveness, maybe even a sense of hope. It's a sign of recovery effort. If there are any in place and starting to work, that's great to show positive result. So red tomatoes, that were we aiming for. That's the goal. But I have a feeling it's not always smooth sailing, even when those tomatoes are looking plump and delicious. What about those overripe, bursting tomatoes at every top of the vine? What are they telling us? Were things great really interesting? Those overripe tomatoes that might look appealing, but they are also warning signs that represent strong support, renewed trust, but there's a bout there. The reminder, getting complacent, to not let things slide. If that feeling of when everything is going great, but you can't just sit back and relax because things are going to change quickly. So even a peak ripeness, you've got to stay vigilant. You can't just assume those tomatoes will stay perfect forever. The tomato thermometer is so clever. It's not just about the pretty picture. Is it? How do we actually get from real world data to the tomatoes inside, where brilliance totally shines? Actually integrated with the real world data into the visual and is both intuitive and insightful. The health of the ripeness of the tomato are directly influenced by what we could call tomato nutrients and nutrients. Now you really want to know more? What are we feeding this tomato plant? Well, think about the positive social media engagement, the like, the share, the support, and the comment. It's all like a water droplets, nourishing the vine and helping the tomato ripen. The more positive interaction you have, the juicier, the reddier those tomatoes become. So that's those like and retweets are like sunshine and water to a tomato garden. How all these connect? What about the flip side? What happens when you get negative feedback? Does that mean our tomato plants are doomed? No, not necessarily. Think of a negative engagement, criticism, complaint, those angry reacts like whittling leaves or blemishing on the fruit. Those are the worst. They might hurt the overall health of the appearance. for sure, but it doesn't have to be the end. More like a signal that something needs attention. So those blemishes are like a little warning sign, like they need to check the soil there. Maybe adjust your approach. It's not about ignoring the negativity, it's about using it to understand where you might need to make changes. So, feeding the data of data driven tomato garden for the media coverage plays a big role too. Think of a positive coverage and transparencies of sunlight. The more sunlight your tomato plant gets, the meaning and more open and honest you are to the public, the healthier the vine and more vigilant those tomatoes become. So transparency is like giving your tomato plants the best spot in the garden room. But what about the negative media coverage? Does that mean my tomatoes are doomed to live in the shade? Not necessarily. Doomed? No, but negative coverage can definitely cast a shadow both literally and figuratively. It can make it harder for those tomatoes to reach their full potential, that's for sure. It's a good reminder that perception matters. How the media portrays things can have huge impact on how people see your tomato garden. So to speak, we got the social media nutrient, media, sunlight. Anything else we need to add to the mix? No, tomato garden is not complete without fertilizer. In that case, fertilizer represents a direct public feedback, a positive feedback like email saying, "Hey, we love you, what you're doing." Acts like an enriching the soil, leading to healthier, redder tomatoes. So, the more people tells you they're happy with what they're doing, and more those tomatoes thrive. But what happens when the feedback isn't so positive? Does that mean you're stuck with a bunch of wilted, sad-looking tomato plants? Not at all. Think of a negative feedback like poor soil conditions, a sign that something needs adjusting, maybe even a major overhaul. Maybe the soil needs amending or the plants need to be moved to a better location. It's all about using the feedback, good or bad, to create the best possible environment for your tomatoes to thrive. So it's like you're the gardener constantly tending to your tomato plants, making sure that you have the right nutrient, enough sunlight, and all the care they need to grow the delicious red tomato. The whole concept is really starting. It takes something complex as a public sentiment to make you know it's not tangible, not even relatable. But we've talked a lot about this visual aid, how we can actually use this tomato thermometer to know and make decisions, take action. That's where the actionable insights come in and where it is going to get exciting. Imagine you're looking at the tomato thermometer, all you see green tomatoes. That's pretty clear signal that you need to step in and do something and act fast. Someone serving a plate of unripe tomatoes and the people are not happy. So what's the first step? What do you do when you're faced with the full vine full of green tomatoes? Well, first it's a time to add some empathy to the solution, to the situation. That could be in a form of empathy growth. You need to show the public that you get it, that you understand their concern, that you are taking action to fix things. This might be, mean being more transparent, admitting mistakes, and showing that you're willing to change courses. And don't forget the sunshine. We need to turn up the transparencies, shine a light as what we are doing, and show people we are not trying to hide anything. But what happens when you are got a mix of green, yellow, and even a red tomatoes? What does that all tell you? That means you've got a mixed bag of opinions. Some people are still upset, others are continuously optimistic, and some are ready to on board. It's like having different kind of tomatoes in your garden, each needing a slight different approach. So it's like your gardener tending different parts of tomato patch, making sure each plant gets what it needs to thrive. Let's talk about the best case scenario. What happened when your tomato thermometer is full of gorgeous ripe red tomatoes? That's a fantastic sign. It means your efforts are working, trust are being rebuilt, and people are feeling good about things. But remember, those overripe tomatoes, even when things are seeming perfect, you can't just assume they will stay that way forever. So, even when you are got a bumpier crop of juicy red tomatoes, you still need to tend your garden. You got to make sure those plants stay healthy and keep producing. Maintain a positive public perceptions. Taking constant work is all about consistent doing the things that earned you and the trust in the first place. It's really gonna change how we usually think about crisis, but you know how to rebuild trust. It's not just about putting out fires and doing damage control in it. It's like you said, it's about nurturing a healthy environment, creating the right condition of trust to actually flourish. It's about creating a right condition for those tomatoes to grow. And that's a really powerful shift in the perspective. I think instead of being reactive, we are being proactive. We are not just sitting around waiting for something to go wrong. We are actively working to build positive public perceptions. This tomato thermometer is not just a way to measure things. It's like a tool of action, a roadmap of building and keeping trust. And the best part is, anyone can understand and use it. It doesn't matter if you are a CEO or a community leader or just someone who's trying to figure out in life. It shows how universal these concepts are. We all deal with public perceptions on some level, whether it is on a personal relationship, our work life, or even how we interact with the world around us. It's like we all have our own little tomato garden that we are taking care of, right? And this thermometer gives us this framework to make sure that those gardens are healthy and productive. Thinking about the tomato thermometer really highlights how important it is to listen to feedback and be adaptable. You can't just get things in motion and expect everything to go perfectly to plan. That's where the ongoing monitoring comes in. Just like a gardener regularly checks on their plants, we need to constantly check the state of your tomatoes. In other words, the public sentiment. Are they green and angry? Are they starting to ripe and show signs of trust? Are they red, which means their strong support, and you make adjustment based on what you see. Maybe you need to add more of empathy broth, or maybe you need to increase sunlight of transparency, or maybe it's time to add some piece of spices, so you know how to engage with your audience in a more active way. It's all about being responsive to what your tomato garden needs. What I really love about is something that you really feel abstract and overwhelming, like trying to grasp the feeling of huge group of people, and it makes us tangible, yet relatable, and suddenly it's not scary anymore. It turns something intangible into something we see, touch, even taste. It breaks down the complexities of public sentiment and empowers us to take action. And using like tomato plant makes it accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter what your background is and how much you know. The universal language for understanding and managing perception so brilliant. This tomato thermometer reminds me of something we talked about before, is importance of balance. You can have all the red tomatoes all the time. There's going to be time when things are tough, when those tomatoes are green and bruised, and that's okay. Absolutely. It's about embracing the full spectrum of the tomato life cycle, recognizing that every stage has its purpose. Those green tomatoes, even though they are not as attractive and are essential for growth, they represent an opportunity to learn and to make corrections. And sometimes it is those bruised and yellow tomatoes that needs more care, right? They may be struggling, but with the right attention, they can still ripe and become beautiful red tomato. It's about understanding that even when things are negative, there's always a chance of growth and in transformation. Is hopeful message, like saying, even if things aren't perfect right now, don't give up on your tomato garden. Keep tending it, keep nurturing it, and eventually you will see the reward. It reminds us that building and maintaining frost is an ongoing process, and it requires patience, persistence, and willing to adapt. It's like delicious reminder that even in the middle of the challenges, there's always a hope for a brighter, juicier tomorrow. To ask, this tomato thermometer gives any specific advice on how to use the real world situation? Gets really practical where it really is. We recommend thinking of the thermometer as a guide of what you do. So for example, if you see a greener tomatoes, well, that's a sign that you need to focus on something, showing empathy and taking corrective actions, like making sure you actually dealing with the reasons behind the negativity and showing people that you're taking their correct concern seriously. And this might mean being more transparent about how you make decisions, owning up mistakes, and showing that you need to change directions. If you are likely to say, hey, I hear you, I see those green tomatoes, I'm gonna do whatever to make them red. Exactly. Let's say you've got a mix of colors on your thermometer, some green, some yellow, and some red. This tells you that there are different opinions out there, and this means you need to have a more nuanced in your approach. It's like you're dealing with different tomatoes that need different care, right? Some needs more sunlight, others need more water, and so on. That's perfect. You might need to message to address a specific concern to each group. You might need to show positive action to win over those who are still unsure. It's all about understanding whom you're meeting, and where they are. Now imagine a scenario where the thermometer is mostly red, those plump, juicy tomatoes looking great. This is a signal that your recovery efforts are working. Trust is coming back and people feel good about where things are going. So again, we finally kick back and enjoy the delicious tomato harvest. You can definitely celebrate how far you have come, but it's not the time to get too comfortable. Remember, even the ripest tomato can go bad if you don't take care of them. Even when things seems perfect, things could go wrong if you are not careful. Staying in good standing with the public takes ongoing effort. Showing the values and actions that own that trust in the first place is just about getting a good place. This tomato thermometer reminds you that constant reminder to keep tending to your garden, nurturing those relationships, and making sure those tomatoes stay juicy and delicious. The power is in constant effort and never taking trust for granted. And all those come back to a simple yet brilliant of a tomato plant. Who would have thought about the tomato could be a key understanding in managing public perception? Who? It reminds us that sometimes the most profound insights can come from the most unexpected places, and that even in the toughest situation, there's always the possibilities of growth, transformation, and yes, a beautiful harvest. The whole thermometer about tomato thermometer idea is just so smart, It feels like actually picturing the public sentiment changing now, like watching those tomatoes change colors. The idea makes us feel real and relatable. As we were wrapping to the deep dive into the tomato thermometer, just isn't about managing what other people think about us. It's about the self-awareness. It makes us look inward and think about our own actions and how they are affecting the climate of our own tomato garden. So to speak, I'm creating an environment where trust and understanding can grow. I accidentally contributed to the bad environment where those tomatoes never get a chance to ripe. Really makes me think about our own responsibility, goes beyond what we do as an individual. Tomato thermometer could be used by the organization communities, even the whole countries, to get a feel of the public sentiment and guide their action. Imagine the government using this to track public opinion on new policies or something. They could actually see like a real time how their actions are affecting people perceptions, and they make adjustments. It's like feedback loop of democracy. People's opinions are literally reflected in the colors of those tomatoes. That's cool thought. How this tool can actually help us to connect the power within the people they serve has really changed